workforce. Joining us now exclusively, Tyson Foods CFO Stewart Glendinning. Stewart, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you having me.
Talk us through the level of impact you've seen, Stewart, in terms of meat processing, where we stand today and what you can do to kind of get production back online.
Yeah, well, look, first, let's start with worker safety. It's our top priority, and I want to thank all of our workers for the great job that they're doing. You asked me what it takes to get the plants back online, and of course, worker safety is at the top of that. We've implemented a wide number of measures to look after our workers, from measuring temperatures as they come through the door, face coverings, staggered breaks, expanded room, social distancing. All of these are designed to help keep our workers safe. Keeping our workers safe is what will keep our plants running. And of course, where necessary, we've been willing to close those plants and to deep clean them in order to make sure that we can get back to speed as quickly as possible.
It doesn't sound very safe. I mean, there was a headline 3 days ago, Stewart, that said nearly 900 employees at an Indiana pork producing plant, 40% of the workforce tested positive for the disease. And that was after a number of your plants had already closed because so many people were testing positive.
Well, Sarah, you know, we have more than 400 facilities across the country. And I'll tell you that the statistic I saw as of Friday was that 80% of those facilities had no cases at all. We're taking prevention as a very, very serious measure in our company. And certainly that's a big contributor to the statistic I've just given you.
What difference, Stewart, does the president's executive order make?
Well, we're very thankful to the administration for taking action there. The most important result of that is it brings some standard of care or some standard of operation across all of our plants. So we'll be operating to a common standard across the country. And we think that's a great approach to keeping the food flowing in our country, not just for our company, but of course for all of the families, for all of the farmers, and people across the country.
We spoke, Stewart, last week to the head of one of your biggest unions, Mark Perrone, president of the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union. Here's what he said about the safety issue.
The workers are still afraid, and now their trust has been broken in those plants. I don't know whether or not they're going to go back to work. Because some of them, I think, are just not going to work because they're afraid.
Yeah, well, certainly we know that.
Even if you have the executive order to, no, I was just going to ask, are they going to come? Do they feel safe?
Yeah, I can tell you that we know that workers are afraid, and we know that education is the best way to ensure that they can come to work and not feel afraid. One of the ways we do that, of course, is making sure that when workers come to our plants, they see all of the measures that are going to keep them safe. You know, we're spending on these face coverings about $8 to $10 million a month. That is just part of a wide range of measures that we're undertaking to make sure our workers are safe. We've just brought some health workers, Axiom Medical, on site to help look after workers and to make sure we're giving them the right level of care and education.
Stewart, I wanted to switch focus and ask about the demand for meat amid coronavirus. Clearly, a lot more demand for people cooking at home and a lot less from restaurants. How does that net out in terms of total demand?
Well, certainly we saw a pretty big fall-off in food services as schools and restaurants were closed. But at the end of the day, you know, people are not resigned to eating less. And so you saw a big spike in retail. For our company, that works out to be net negative because not all of the plants can be switched over to produce food for retail, but we've certainly been very successful in a number of them. What we feel good about is the fact that our company has a great long-term potential. And actually, if you really looked at the issues you're facing in the current term, I mean, I would describe those as more temporal than structural.
So as the country's largest meat producer, processor, what sort of shortages at this point are we looking at? And what about prices?
Well, right now, I think you've seen across the market a lot of pressure both in beef and in pork. And the stats I saw from the USDA last week, their own estimates suggest that beef and pork production could be off around 20 or 30%. So that's a very, very large number. I think from a pricing perspective, The market will determine that. We did have a call this morning on which we shared from our own company the expectation that we saw a pretty challenging pricing environment actually in chicken, i.e. Chicken prices are not expensive. So we think that's actually a good product for consumers at the moment.
I'm stepping away, Stewart, from coronavirus and the sort of longer-term trends in the industry. What's your latest position on plant-based meats? And when you consider that Impossible Foods, for example, just closed a $500 million round, reportedly still looking for raising more money, is there an opportunity to partner there with one of those established brands or not? What are you thinking on the latest there?
Well, we've got a great range of our own products in this space. We've seen terrific growth from them. They're doing well at retail. We also have the ability to launch new products under existing brands, and I think we're going to be better off doing the job by ourselves.
What's happening, Stewart, with exports? I mean, your industry was supposed to be a big beneficiary of the trade deal with China, and China buys some of our meat. What does that look like right now, especially with tensions heating up again between the U.S. and China?
Well, trade deals are important in making sure that food flows around the world. And we did say as part of our earnings release this morning that we had seen a big growth in exports. And I think there's going to continue to be strong demand around the world. We produce great food in America. There's a growing need for food around the planet. And despite the current challenges, I think if you looked at the long term, you're going to see us filling a big part of that growth potential.
Stewart, thanks so much for joining us today.